Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.
You know, you've got an incredible story here with your book, and what a storied life you've led at 82 years young, soon to be 83. The book is amazing. How did you get all this put down into one book?
Well, somebody suggested I write a book about all, and no one thinks about writing a book until, or at least I didn't. But when I started writing the book, I thought, my God, we went through a lot of experiences.
Crazy.
A lot of experiences. And we lived in 13 different places through our life. And I pursued life for an adventure for my kids. And I didn't go after money. I couldn't afford a big ranch when I was young. And so I wanted my kids to have their horses and ride and have river. There was always water, a lake or a river that we would work at. I would pick a ranch by the location. And one place we lived was the Roaring Springs Ranch, and it was 100 miles from our ranch house to Burns, Oregon.
Yeah.
And we were 40 miles to the nearest town, which was French Glen, which was just about 10 people that lived there. And we just had such a adventurous life. And the reason I feel so good, you know, I'm almost 83, but a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, hundreds of people think I'm 80. And I wouldn't exaggerate that, but I hear that.
Yeah.
And I feel good because I'm actually almost 83.
Well, you know, what a storied life you've led between, you know, being in the Navy, a policeman, all the things that you've done career-wise, and of course your music, traveling around the world, and the book is dedicated to your wife, Carol.
Yes, yes.
And, you know, and your 7 children. And it's such an interesting story. I mean, all the calamity, you know, talking about, you know, your truck back when you were doing the lumber work and things like that. It's just amazing.
I know. And here she is. We had a sawmill when we were living on Whidbey Island. And because I was a policeman in Seattle from 1962 to 69. And during that course of that experience, I was a guard hired by the Beatles in '64, the second city that they came to in America. And I was hired off duty in uniform to protect them. And I remember walking in and watching them. They only played for, as I recall, 15 minutes, and they had filler bands. And they only played twice. But the girls were just crazy. And when the Beatles came out, we had a problem in getting them out of the Coliseum in Seattle because the kids were just, where are they? They were just uncontrollable, crazy. The girls, not the boys. Anyway, what we eventually did was we put them on a Greyhound bus. We lured them in one direction with cabs with darkened, not cabs, but Lincolns with darkened windows.
Wow.
And they thought they were, and when they saw that, they ran over, and when they weren't in it, the car, they would turn it over.
Right.
And we were helpless because there were only 7 or 8 of us guys against 300 or 400 or whatever it was, maybe more.
Right.
And so we got them out on a Greyhound bus, and they came out, and I was 6 feet away from them, and I remember looking at them thinking, boy, you guys have got it made. I was 25, 24, and they looked like they had it made.
Oh,
and I thought, and now as my life progressed, I wouldn't have changed places with any of them.
No, not at all. Well, you know, and it's so interesting too, you know, with your life, you know, having beat cancer and you know, back when you were in your 30s and all the incredible things that you've accomplished now in your life. It has to, and I know that the book is also available on audio as well.
Yes.
And it's like, but what a great story of triumphing. Well, I was going to bring up too that, you know, you're still a cattle farmer.
Yes.
Up in northern Nevada.
Yes.
And how did you get into music? Because we were talking about, you know, your last album that came out, Everyone Needs a Little Lovin' and a Lot of Beer, came out last year.
Yes.
And you're working on your new album with the
6.
famed Charlie McCoy.
Yes.
Here at Cash Cabin in Nashville.
And I'm working with the Watershed Studios, with Wanda Vick and her husband, Mark.
Wow.
And they are terrific, very, very good musicians. And I had Eddie Bayer as my drummer, and I never realized until I heard a really good drummer how important it was.
Oh my goodness.
And I made a song called Satisfied Mind, and I can tell you, and anybody listening, I was in heaven as far as I was concerned, as far as we all recognize heaven, a wonderful place. Anyway, I was in heaven as I was listening to the music. I sang that song. I couldn't have been happier. You could have given me $1 million and said, where do you want to go with this money? I'd have rather had that moment.
Well, you know, and I really enjoyed your rendition of House of the Rising Sun, and there's a video with you going all over Nashville.
Yes.
And that song and video has been so popular.
Yes.
And I know this new album, can you tell us what the name will be?
I haven't dreamed one up yet.
And this will be your 6th album.
Yes.
And so you tour around
Yes.
doing your music, you know, now you've got your book.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of things going in your 80s.
Yeah, 82. I gave it up.
Yeah, but I mean, that's just amazing to stay
Yes.
that busy and with your cattle ranch and everything else you do.
Well, I'm happy and I'm goofy. And the reason I'm happy is because I'm loving my life and I love my kids. And we just, we've grown up in an atmosphere they have with hard work, and they've all been successful.
Mm-hmm. Just amazing. Well, I want to make sure too, you know, that our viewers know where to get your book, which I know it's available on Amazon, but
Yes.
also you're going to be touring the country
Right.
and doing sign-ins and everything for 50 Years with the Wrong Woman.
Yes.
The audio book is out also.
Yes.
And then we're going to have a new album out later this fall.
Yes.
Where do they need to go for your website and everything, Bob?
Well, Amazon.com. You know, I haven't really, I spent a lot of money on these recordings, but I'm not a big promoter of the music.
Right.
I would like to see, this costs a lot of money too, and pretty soon you start thinking, boy, well, you better watch what you're doing, Jack.
But everything you do, it works.
Well, it seems to.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the album will too. And obviously, you know, you've done so well with your music, with your album that came out last year, Everyone Needs a Little Lovin' and a Lot of Beer.
Yes.
And then the new album that'll come out this year that you recorded here in Nashville with stars, including
Yes.
Country Music Hall of Famer
Well, it's the best album
Charlie
I've
McCoy.
made.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear it. Well, I thought, you know, your version, like I said, of House of the Rising Sun was just stellar.
Well, I'm glad you did. I mean, well, here's how, you asked me how I got started in this. When we were on ranches, we always had a horse and buggy ever since the log cabin, because we needed a horse and buggy to get through the mud, to bring our laundry and groceries in, because the car would just sink,
Oh, yeah.
four-wheeled. So anyway, and it worked very well. The buggy would only go in about 8 inches or something like that.
Yeah.
So anyhow, we took that buggy everywhere we went, and I was working in a little town in Oregon, and a town of French Glen, Oregon, and I would give buggy rides and this to people for extra money and so on. Anyway, I had this buggy, and we were on different ranches, like I was telling you, and I'd hitch the horse up at night when I got through work. And we were miles from anybody, and a lot of Mustangs and stuff to see. And so I'd put a cassette player in with all my old country music that I grew up with.
Right.
And the kids would ride along and I'd be singing away. Well, I took them on a trip about 7 years ago down to New Orleans, all through the South.
Right.
All my girls. And I took them up to Nashville eventually. And my family was staying in a nice hotel right off of where the country music is in Nashville, as you know how that is laid out. And my daughter said, let's go down and see what music they have, Dad. And so we went into different bars, and I didn't really care for the most until I hit Randy Moore, who was playing at Margaritaville. Mm-hmm. Oh, man.
I saw that picture.
Oh, I love that guy singing. And we kept getting closer and closer. And finally, my daughter said to me, Dad, see if he'll let you sing a song to me. So I went up and I said, hey, partner. I said, do you mind if I sing a song to my daughter? And he looked me up and down and said, get up here. And I asked him later, I said, why did you do that?
Right.
And he said, because I could tell you were a real cowboy and not a wannabe, you know.
Right.
So anyway, I sang, and we became acquainted, and then I hired him to come out to our ranch and perform for other ranchers in Nevada.
Oh, wow.
And then he came, stayed 4 days, took pictures of everything that we had there. Then his band wanted to come out the following year, so they paid their own way to come out. And they came out and enjoyed everything that we had.
And the rest is country music history.
Yes.
Well, and I'll tell you what, there are great pictures in here too. I love all the photos with you and your family, even you as a little boy and with your sister, and the story about your grandma and her, dancing,
Yes.
dancing husband. But I tell you what, get your own copy. 50 Years with the Wrong Woman. Nevada Bob, you want to be sure and catch him when he's touring around the country too. Get him to sign your copy of the book. There's going to be new music coming out. You can also get the book on audio. I think there's probably going to be a documentary in the next year or so. So be sure and watch for that. Nevada Bob, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.